Good evening, Internet. We're here at the North Shore Proving Grounds to show a little demonstration. This is because of the overwhelming response we got to our Instructable about showing how the Hobo stove works, or how to build one. We're going to show how to boil water in it using an alternative source. Now what I've got here, excuse me, there's a lot of mosquitoes out here, is called an alcohol jet stove. Sometimes they call it a penny stove. This is essentially, if you can see from our vantage point, this is basically two bottom halves of a can that have been fused together with several vent holes drilled around the edge, and then two holes drilled in the top. Losing a little fuel there. The two holes in the top are actually to put the fuel in. These burn regular alcohol. Now this isn't regular isopropyl alcohol. This is a 91% concentration. A little bit stronger than what you'll find in the bathroom, but still available at the pharmacy. Now what you do using these two holes in the top, you'll fill it a little bit, not quite halfway. You don't want to get too much in here. But the way these work, once they light, the alcohol inside heats up to a certain vapor point. And then when it gets to that point, the alcohol vapor pushes out, causing basically a flame like you would see on a gas stove. Now the one I have here isn't adjusted exactly like it should be. The holes that I've got around it are drilled a little bit too large, so there's a lot more air than needs to be. But it still gets pretty hot, and we'll see that in a second. We'll go ahead and get this down into our stove. Once again, this is something you've got to be careful with. You don't want to spill it. Get everything set up. What we're going to do, we're going to burn exactly 1 cup of water. We're going to boil it. Now normally a stove like this would be used for like a twig fire or sometimes a candle. I actually designed this one to be used with a small tea light, but, well, we're looking for speed here. Now, I don't recommend using this method if you are cooking, say, a military-grade MRE, something where you would be squeezing the food out into the cooking can and applying to the heat, because using this method, I guarantee your MRE is going to turn into, well, blackened soot. Now, one reason this is called a penny burner is because you put a penny over the top of those two fueling holes. That's to keep any flame from starting to come out of those fueling holes. Just like that. While my assistant gets the camera set back up. Thanks, by the way, Zach. What we're going to do, we're going to pour a little alcohol onto the outside of the stove itself. This is how we light these types of stoves. Alright, get this thing going here. It's going to be energetic. First, because of the way we have to start it up. Now what you're seeing is the alcohol burning off from around the stove while I put it in. That's raising the vapor temperature of the alcohol inside, creating a pressure that'll in turn make this thing act like a little gas burner or a jet. While we're waiting for this to get ready, we'll get the chronograph ready. Now we've got a bit of a windy day, so I'm hoping that's not going to act to our detriment. The Hobo stove acts as a chimney. Air comes in through this opening here, and then is pulled upward in a vortex. When we set the can on top of this, it's going to swirl all of the heat right up to the bottom of the can. fastest way to boil water, but I don't recommend using it for your military-grade MREs, because if you squeeze those out into the can and heat it up this quickly, it's going to turn it into charcoal. But in a survival situation, since water is one of the big three that you really need to survive, being able to boil that water increases your chances exponentially. Because when you're out in the wild, things like Giardia and Cryptosporidium are things you really don't want to deal with. Now we're starting to get a good pressure. See the individual flames shooting from the little vent holes and spiraling up to the can. Go ahead and set the can on. Now, once again, kids, don't try this at home. There's a very distinct possibility you could lose knuckle hair or worse. All right, water's in place. Chronograph has started. Room temperature water, ambient temperature of about 62 degrees outside. Not really a high wind, but a wind nonetheless. Now we're doing this on a day that has been deemed by the local Department of Natural Resources a low fire hazard day. But anytime you build a fire out in the wild, you want to make sure you clear off all of the burnable items to within a radius of at least 10 feet from where your fire is. You really don't want to have to deal with wildfires or something else of an equally nasty nature. Things are happening pretty quickly. We're already starting to get bubbles. Actually looks like things are getting pretty energetic in the can already. We are at 1 minute 40 seconds. There we go. There's a rolling boil at 1 minute 51 seconds. No self-respecting adventurer is ever without his multi-tool. There you have it. Okay. Like I said, due to an overwhelming response, a demonstration of the usefulness of the Hobo stove, there are a vast number of instructables online that tell how to do the alcohol jet stove, so we're not going to venture into that here. I do recommend that anyone, anywhere trying this, regardless of your level of expertise, should proceed with extreme caution. If you've never dealt with anything like this, there is a severe possibility that you could get burned or suffer other injuries as well. Basically, this is the big disclaimer that says, dear God, don't try this at home. All right, catch us next week. We're going to be talking about bug-out bags from Copper Island Makerspace Proving Grounds on the northern shore. Have a good night.